This is Nightly Business Report with Sue Herrera and Bill Griffith.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Nightly Business Report. I'm Sue Herrera.
And I'm Bill Griffith. On this Thanksgiving Day, of course, the stock market is closed, Wall Street is quiet. So we thought it was the perfect time for us to take another look at some of the stories that caught our attention over the past few months.
Indeed, and we begin with travel, which is something most Americans are dealing with on this holiday. Reducing travel time, particularly for rail and bus users, is projected to be a big business. But what's the best way to do that? One way is to give riders the information they need to get where they're going more efficiently. And that is why two entrepreneurs are making your mobility their business. In 2008 and 2009, Matt Kaywood spent many grad school nights in a San Francisco lab researching AI and neuroscience. But getting home meant guesswork. Which of several buses might show up first? That type of information was not yet widely available.
When they first produced real-time live information, I realized that could, solve my problem. I'd never have to wait out in the fog again. But the problem was there wasn't a single place to get it all.
In his free time, Kaywood began developing a platform to get it all. Buses, rails, car services like Uber and Lyft, bikes and scooters too. In 2013, he was working in Washington, D.C. when he took a prototype to a mentoring group for entrepreneurs. And that's where he met Ryan Croft, a tour company owner whose travels had taken him to 50 countries and 100 cities.
They all have poor traffic. Information is king. If you give people information at the time that they need it, they can make an informed decision.
They began bootstrapping a business, Transit Screen.
If I press this, will it give me a location?
Along the way, the former U.S. president took notice at a startup incubator. And in 2015, Transit Screen went live, sharing information at first from San Francisco and the D.C. area.
We're driving them customers and we're giving them a better experience. In return, they don't charge us and we don't charge them.
Now Transit Screen digests more than 2,000 feeds from 60 cities around the world, 24 hours a day.
How often are these trains coming? Are there a lot of Ubers and bike shares and scooters nearby in the proximity of that building?
If it's coming in 4 minutes, maybe I walk straight there. If it's longer, maybe I'll decide that I want to stop and grab a coffee.
Who pays for their service?
Everybody seems to use them.
Real estate developers and leasing agents like Tristan Frey. Of course, because it's all about location, location, location. Transit Screen won't say exactly what they charge, only that it's usually a few $100s a month per screen, and they're in roughly 1,500 buildings across the country.
It is definitely a major selling point. As I'm taking people to look at the building, they're always like, oh wow, that's super, super useful.
Now there's also an app for that called City Motion, and this year a new revenue stream. Many big companies provide employee shuttle services, and some are paying to help their employees choose a route that's right for them.
It's an amenity for employees, but it's actually a necessity for companies.
We just kept hearing the story over and over again about the pain of turnover.
We're right on top of a metro station ourselves here. Why? Because we want to be close to our employees.
Lots of those big companies are multinationals, so Transit Screen, already on track to bring in between $4 and $8 million in sales in 2019, is planning to expand into 14 European cities beginning later this year. For Kaywood and Croft, time really is money.
It's a very scalable business and it's an endless ocean of companies out there, and we're just now sort of in the first inning or two of this long game.
And as transportation becomes more data-driven, the company is working to get transit systems on the same page when it comes to data formats. That way, the information can get to the rest of us more smoothly.
Now to something most Americans can say they identify with. That would be home renovations. Can be a painful process sometimes, but two entrepreneurs hope to make it a little less so by giving both homeowners and builders a one-stop shop for materials, design, and construction. The thought of home renovation makes most of us wince. The order of the day, cautious pessimism.
The joke is that neither of us would renovate even if we could afford to.
We thought about renovation as an insane, in a poor way, experience for folks.
Yeah, this is a new bathtub.
Trying to simplify the renovation process might sound even more insane, but Luke Sherwin and Koda Wong are trying. Their digital platform, Block, aims to improve confidence for both owners and builders when it comes to quality, cost, and convenience.
These are before and afters.
Focusing on bathrooms since launching in December of 2018, Block has completed almost 100 jobs in apartments and single-family homes in New York City and in New Jersey. They say Block's average cost is slightly below Remodeling Magazine's mid-range average, about $28,000 in the New York area for an existing 5x7 room. The national average, about $20,000.
We find a lot of people are sort of paralyzed by how many thousand combinations are out there.
Yeah, it's a nice color.
By limiting its range of products, Block knows what it needs, and it can negotiate prices for tubs and faucets, vanities, and the like.
We create a 3D model.
It also streamlines the design process.
A completely custom design would take probably around like 5-6 hours versus doing it using the products in a catalog takes about an hour.
It basically is an efficiency on every single step of the renovation process.
Sherwin and Wong say efficiencies are gained in the construction phase too. Block vets and hires its own builders.
Their guys are showing up and everything is ready for them to install. And because Block acquires the customer, you're eliminating this dance that renovators have to do.
Instead of the dance, the dreaded bidding process, Block gets builders to accept lower fees by making their jobs easier.
They don't like to do marketing on Instagram. They don't like to do all the little billing and administrative work. They don't like to be sending out 20 proposals and hoping to win one.
They do like to build, though. Sherwin and Wong believe dangling a carrot, a pipeline of future projects, eliminates a builder's greatest fear, finding the next job.
You don't have to go to the customer, you don't have to call them and say, what about this, what about that, sizes, specs, finishes. It's just so streamlined. So I could potentially set up a crew and do multiple jobs at once.
This soup to nuts bathroom reno in New York City took less than a month. That's a third of the national average, and it cost about $30,000, just above the New York average for a mid-range project, including some custom plumbing and detailing. Sherwin and Wong are already testing the Block model on kitchen projects, and they're working to expand beyond the New York area.
If this works, and it works at scale, then both the homeowner and the contractor should benefit.
Even though Sherwin and Wong haven't actually renovated anything themselves, both had a hand in previous digital success stories. Sherwin at the mattress company Casper, and Wong in fashion at Rent the Runway.
When speaking of fashion, we often think of women's apparel, but it's the men's fashion industry that is growing quickly, not necessarily for business suits, but rather for streetwear. And that's why a team of entrepreneurs created an online marketplace focused on men. Arun Gupta found a taste for fashion while he was in college at Yale, but there was one problem.
I couldn't afford any of it because it's crazy expensive.
Gupta found that guys, guys, were talking fashion online, occasionally making deals on used, hard-to-find items, holy grails to some.
It's like, oh, like this pair of boots came out 3 years ago, like, but I missed it when they came out, and now they're like impossible to find anywhere. So that's my grail, basically.
By 2013, sites were selling used cars, furniture, even women's fashion. Men's fashion was fashionably late to the game.
I was like, look, this secondary market thing is going to be huge. I want to get in on this situation.
So Gupta built a rudimentary site and began convincing folks in the chat rooms to use it.
Oh, that is sick.
By 2014, Julian Connor, a software specialist, along with Jake Metzger, who's since moved on, teamed with Gupta to co-found Grail. It now boasts almost 4 million users per month. Connor used early versions of the site and still shops there today.
I really like avant-garde fashion, and so the jacket and shirt are both from a American-born designer that now lives in Paris his name is Rick Owens.
I love that.
Grail collects a 6% fee on each transaction, 1.2 million of them in 2018, at an average price of about $150 per unit. High-end items can get the rare art treatment, selling for tens of thousands of dollars.
We've got these cool Prada dress shoes for $123.
Sometimes their vintage goods provide a surprise.
So this is a Rolling Stone shirt from the 94-95 tour. Super steal, I got it for $50, which is awesome.
Meticulous curation, dictated in part by customer demand, has built a mystique.
This like early Margiela piece, like Margiela's super iconic designer, and then the red sleeve was like a whole thing. And if you saw the latest first Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, C-3PO has a red arm, which like may or may not be influenced by this jacket.
Some rare items are sold, others get archived.
This is an Issey Miyake jacket. You remember Steve Jobs' iconic like black turtlenecks? He's the guy who designed all his turtlenecks, basically.
Celebrities will sometimes borrow items to shoot magazine covers, and musicians have worn their pieces on stage.
This is Raph Simmons, but it's based off of the New Order album art cover from Power, Corruption, Lies, where all these details are hand-painted.
I think it's really interesting to see how fashion now is just as much a hobby for guys as is, sports or anything else.
GQ writer Cam Wolf.
You have to be well-versed in sort of these archive pieces, and I think Grail has really helped educate that and then serve that consumer.
This is another Saint Laurent piece.
An increasingly stylish consumer looking for a deal on high-end, secondhand stuff.
The value proposition that we provide is so salient to many, where I don't think we've had this same sort of growth challenges that other businesses have had.
It all starts with talking to the consumer and understanding what it is exactly that they want.
Grail is constantly expanding its reach. What started with about 100 items now has almost 2 million pieces listed for sale from around the world. And 2 years ago, it launched a sister site which focuses on women's clothing.
Still ahead, an investigation into a brazen crime that's hurting retailers' profits. Now to an in-depth story on stealing. It's not a new crime, of course, but it is becoming more and more expensive for retailers. In fact, retail crime losses are at an all-time high right now, according to the National Retail Federation. Just last week, Home Depot said that its profits were hurt by shrink. That is the industry code word for theft, among other things. So the company gave us exclusive access to see how it fights a never-ending battle against stealing. Courtney Reagan has our investigation. Grab and go.
You're watching brazen retail theft. The suspects are so sure they won't get caught that some even get aggressive when stopped, as this surveillance video from Home Depot shows. Most likely, these people aren't shoplifters or people who steal items for their own use. Instead, it's a bigger problem known as organized retail crime, with criminals working together to steal for profit. Home Depot's Jamie Bourne investigates the theft. It all starts with boosters.
A booster is somebody that is basically a professional shoplifter. They're doing it for profit, not just for personal use.
Are they just guessing what items are in demand? Do they know it from history? I know that I can sell a lot of drills.
There are many locations out there that are giving lists to the boosters.
If they're giving lists, they're part of the crime too, are they not?
Absolutely.
One of those locations was this pawn shop. The manager was charged with selling stolen property. The case is ongoing. Our next stop, this raid.
Police, search warrant!
Bourne and his team helped when law enforcement served a search warrant on this Utah home.
When we do search warrants with law enforcement, we can provide them the value of the merchandise.
The suspect allegedly sold stolen power drills and other tools on Facebook. He was arrested. Law enforcement seized a pallet full of items from the home. They were brought to this warehouse. It may look like Home Depot, but this is actually an evidence room. Inside is over $1 million worth of stolen product seized from a raid of 7 pawn shops.
We'll actually see on the inside of a pawn shop, they'll say Lowe's and Home Depot's price, $129.99. Our price, $79.99.
Chris Walden is a special agent with the Utah Attorney General's office.
How is it that some of these secondhand merchants are selling it for less than what a big box retailer like Home Depot or Lowe's can even buy that product for?
They found the answer in these sting operations.
Trying to do? Sell them? Pawn them?
Yeah, sell them. This is undercover video of law enforcement selling items that seem stolen to those pawn shops. The case led to a new Utah law that makes it harder for pawn shops to buy unopened product.
Since we passed the new law, it seems like it's getting a little bit better. What we've seen is a shift over to e-commerce.
Just like the power tools we saw confiscated during the raid. Here they were for sale on Facebook. Is it sort of a game of whack-a-mole? You fix it here, but then they pop up somewhere else?
Yeah, certainly. We rely on the retailers. If the retailers call and say, hey, you know, we've done this preliminary investigation and we think this is a good case, it's something that we're willing to look at.
Organized retail crime is growing and costs the industry nearly $800,000 per every billion in sales. Home Depot said its profit took a hit in the last 3 quarters because of higher shrink or loss of goods, which includes organized retail crime.
While we don't comment on our particular numbers, we are seeing shrinkage rates rise across the country.
Scott Glenn is in charge of asset protection for Home Depot.
Organized retail crime drives other crimes. It drives drugs, it drives guns, it drives human trafficking. I think the opioid and drug epidemic is a piece of it. So when we're dealing with people who may have no regard for injuring people, when we have people that are dealing with no regard for their own safety, we don't engage with those folks.
Is that why you think the criminal activity may be continuing at the Home Depot? The criminals know I can get away with this?
I think criminal activity is happening in every retailer every day across the country. It's not exclusive to us.
Why should consumers care that this is happening? Isn't Home Depot big enough to absorb this issue?
We have been very good about not raising prices as a result of our shrink equation, but if it gets to a point where we cannot continue to do business this way, ultimately we will have to pass it along.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Coming up, a city in the Deep South undergoes a renaissance.
We report a lot about real estate trends. After all, our homes are one of our most valuable assets. But a curious thing is taking shape in the market. Affordability has long been an issue for those looking to buy a home. And now the same is true for those who want to rent single-family homes because demand is hotter than ever. Diana Olick explains.
Anyone out shopping for an entry-level home knows the prices are high and the pickings are slim. Now, the same is holding true for rentals. As more Americans find it harder to afford a home, rental demand is soaring, especially for single-family homes. Kimberly Sestari is both a real estate agent and a landlord, and she's seen the D.C. rental market take off.
I think it's more of a millennial thing in that they have the income available for the higher prices on the single-family detached homes. They may have tried a condo, tried an apartment, but now they want some outdoor space and they have the disposable income to use it.
The supply of rental homes is shrinking nationally. In the third quarter of this year, single-family vacancies were at 6.8%, down from 7.1% 1 year ago, according to CoreLogic. Supply is much lower on the low end, so rent prices there are increasing most, up 4% annually in September. Higher-end rents were up less, but in the hottest markets like Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Seattle, rents are soaring.
Rents are not going down. I have seen consistent growth year after year, and single-family markets in particular. People want that experience of having a yard, having enough bedrooms and baths, and I've seen increases consistent every year.
The number of single-family homes available for less than $1,250 per month has dropped 40% since 2013, according to Capital Economics. All this despite the fact that the single-family rental market ballooned during the foreclosure crisis. Investors bought thousands of distressed homes, growing the rental supply by 38% just between 2012 and 2016. Most thought that as the housing market recovered, investors would sell their properties for a nice profit and call it a day. But the rental income now is just too lucrative, so even more investors are buying more properties. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Diana Olick in Washington.
From housing to cars and the rush to go electric. And Ford is going all out. The automaker is attaching its iconic Mustang brand to its first all-electric SUV. But will it have the horsepower and the appeal to be a game changer for the automaker? Phil LeBeau is in Los Angeles tonight.
This is no pony car, but it is the all-new, all-electric SUV, the Mustang Mach-E, a name Ford's chairman resisted when his team first approached him about calling it a Mustang.
They weren't very happy with my response, but the product kept evolving, both the performance of it and also the styling of it, to the point where, there was a point where I finally realized, whoa, this is an amazing vehicle, and yes, it's worthy of the Mustang Pony.
With a range of up to 300 miles fully charged and 47 miles after a 10-minute quick charge, Ford believes the Mach-E has the power to energize its dismal electric car program. In the U.S., Tesla dominates EV sales, while GM, Nissan, and VW share much of what's left over. Ford hasn't sold a single pure electric car this year. The truth is, electric models like the Chevy Bolt and Nissan Leaf lack the style and appeal of Teslas, while other recently introduced electric models have also failed to connect with buyers, which is why many are wondering if the Mach-E, with a more aggressive look and plenty of power, will finally be the EV that challenges Tesla.
I think the EV segment has really needed a shakeup. I think Tesla has proved that these people want utility, they want a environmentally friendly car, but they also want something with a lot of design. And I think Ford has proved that you can do this at a pretty affordable price point.
Will Mustang fans care that this electric SUV bears little resemblance to the pony car? Maybe, but Ford needs all the horses in its stable to remind Americans it does more than sell pickup trucks.
The heart of the company is on trial here because we have to get this right, because our Mustang share performance just keeps getting better and better. We're now the #1 sports car in the world with Mustang, and this was important not to disrupt the state of that.
The Mach-E rolls out late next year with a base price starting at about $44,000, competitive with Tesla's new Model Y, a crossover utility vehicle which is expected to start selling in the mid-$40,000 range. The EV race is starting to heat up. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Los Angeles.
And from Los Angeles now to Huntsville, Alabama, which is seeing a renaissance thanks to the aerospace and defense industry. Morgan Brennan took a trip there to see the resurgence for herself.
It's called Rocket City, USA, home to one of the highest concentrations of engineers per capita, an educational system that teaches STEM starting in elementary school, and long-standing ties to aerospace and defense.
We have legacy, so our aerospace heritage, we work very hard on that to make sure that we maintain that. So we have about 400 aerospace companies in our market, so very rich concentration of them and a lot of expansion in that.
And the emergence of commercial space is only helping to propel it. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is building a $200 million rocket engine factory in Huntsville and has taken over an historic test stand NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center once used for the Saturn V rockets that launched Apollo astronauts to the moon.
It has this great receptacle of talent there that you can tap into, and it's been decades in building. So we wanted to go to where the talent is.
There's been a boom in defense work as well. Hypersonics, or missiles traveling at Mach 5 or faster, are being developed here. That's helped lure Aerojet Rocketdyne to move its defense headquarters to the area. And Lockheed Martin recently broke ground on a hypersonics facility just outside the city.
They're trying to become an innovation hub of the South with artificial intelligence and other technologies, quantum computing. Space is faster than hypersonics, so all those technologies can be brought together with AI.
That combination and the area's deep roots in STEM have attracted other industries as well. Polaris spent $190 million to open a factory here just 3 years ago, assembling Slingshot and Ranger vehicles. CEO Scott Wine says it was an easy decision to make.
I think the long-standing commitment to engineering that's been in Huntsville for so many years, since World War II really, and then with the Redstone Arsenal there and the Army Stratcom there as well, there's just really a good infrastructure of personnel.
And Polaris isn't alone. GE, Toyota, and Mazda, even Facebook have been making investments. Even the FBI is busy expanding what it calls an HQ2 on the Army's Redstone Arsenal. From 2000 to 2017, the Huntsville metro area grew population, jobs, and wages all at roughly 2 times the national rate. And at a time of low unemployment across the U.S., here it's a stunningly low 2.1%. Hudson Alpha, a nonprofit biotech collective focused on genomic sequencing, is based at Cummings Research Park. It includes companies like Serena Therapeutics, which has developed a polymer technology that could change treatments for Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, even opioid addiction. But it all comes back to space.
I love the fact that I have real rocket scientists working in my lab now, because they've come from that industry to work here as well.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Morgan Brennan in Huntsville, Alabama.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Nightly Business Report. I'm Sue Herrera.
I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.